It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM, and our conversation with Indiana County Commissioner Sherene Hess, brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And she is indeed on the line with us. Sherene, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. It's good to have you on the air with us again.
Thank you.
We're talking elections, and with this coronavirus era in which we're living, there are changes in every aspect of life. It goes to how we put people in office, too, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And recently the House and the Senate at our state level amended the primary election code to postpone our primary election until June 2nd. It was to be held April 28th, and now it's going to be June 2nd. So I sit on the Elections Reform Committee for the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, and we had a conference call about these changes that are happening, and I thought it might be good to have your listeners just know about that. I know it's fairly common knowledge, but just in case people weren't aware, with all the other things going on with the health crisis, I just thought it might be helpful for people to know that.
Well, one of the things that we hear, back to practically the only thing that we hear about it, is that the new date is June 2nd. Are there other provisions that we need to know about?
Yeah, a couple things. So the whole calendar got pushed forward a little bit. So the last day to register to vote now is May 18th of 2020, and the last day to apply for a mail-in or civilian absentee ballot is May 26th. So there's a couple of date changes, although we do encourage folks to apply, to register to vote and apply for any mail-in type ballots as soon as possible, because we do expect our mail-in ballots to be quite a lot this year, just because that's a new thing and it's very convenient, and in this particular situation, it's very convenient for people if they feel uneasy about going to the polls on June 2nd, because I have a feeling we're still going to be, dealing quite a bit still with the coronavirus issue. So that's a good option for people, is arrange to get your mail-in ballot, and you can apply for it online, and then it will be mailed to you from the county office.
You know, when you mention that we really have no timeline for when this COVID-19 crisis will be over, it highlights the fact that there are things to think about in every aspect of our society, and well, that's one of them. That we are changing the way that we vote, and this might be something that becomes, in terms of the ramifications of COVID-19, a more permanent way for people to do things is to vote remotely. There probably will be a huge uptick in that this year.
We believe so, the numbers are coming in now that even before the COVID-19 issue, people were applying for mail-in ballots at a really rapid pace. So it does speak to how appealing to a lot of people that option is. And now with this, we expect it to really increase.
You have been involved in elections, first with the League of Women Voters, but for many, many years, it's been one of your great interests, I know. When we think about electronic voting, other forms of voting other than in-person voting, obviously one of the big concerns has to do with the opportunity for voter fraud. Has that been something that you, with the County Commissioners of PA Elections Reform Committee, that you've talked about?
Yes, it is always a topic that we discuss. It's really a very, very remote possibility because there are so many sets of eyes on this process. And there are many checks and balances involved in the process, all the way from testing the machines up to the canvassing of the ballots, to in between, when you have judges and inspectors and you have lots of poll watchers, citizens who watch the polls, and when you're collecting the information and downloading the processing all that information, there really is not a chance for the voter fraud to take place. Now, there is a database of voters that the statewide usury election database, and that is where some fraud can take place. I'm not so familiar with that part of things, But as far as the voting process itself, there are really very, very few areas where a fraud can take place. And a lot of these, that was a concern when Act 77 was adopted last year. There was a concern that mail-in ballots would allow people to both receive a mail-in ballot and then go to the polling place and vote as well. Well, there have been so many checks and balances put into the code that's really a very remote, if even possible, situation. And even if it would happen, that would just be one extra vote. But it's all that's a huge concern for people, and it's been addressed in many ways. So
yeah.
we feel pretty certain, and there's not when you're voting, there's not a way that's connected to any kind of internet or electronic kind of a thing, especially now. And that's why we have the paper ballots now, and that system has been really examined. So
yeah.
we feel pretty confident about that.
One of the interesting things to me about that is that sometimes that perception can sort of catch like a brush fire and go.
Yeah.
But it is a perception, and it might not actually be the reality. I want to talk about voting in person, and particularly in this climate in which we find ourselves, and what people might not have considered before. We might think of ourselves as, I'm a voter. I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to protect myself. I'll wear the gloves, and so I won't have that problem. So there shouldn't be a problem. However, then we understand that a lot of the people who are working the elections, that are sitting there at those tables when we walk in to cast our vote, are senior citizens, and they are very, very vulnerable because they're not dealing with one or two people or the people that are immediately surrounding them. They're dealing with everybody all day long.
That's right, and that's a concern. And in other counties, not so much in ours, we've seen a lot of polling places say they were just not going to they weren't going to put up their place to be a polling location. Some of those counties out in the eastern part of the state, they're having a severe problem with actually finding polling places now, and that's something that the bill that was just adopted and approved by the governor stated that there's a couple of things that counties can do. They're permitted for this primary only to consolidate 2 or more polling places so that they can kind of address that situation. As long as they don't have more than a 60% reduction in total polling places in the county, they can consolidate some places. So we haven't talked about that yet here in Indiana County. We're just sort of watching the situation emerge and see where if that has to happen. We hope that it doesn't. But there's been some provisions made in this most recent bill that give some flexibility to the counties to address these emerging issues that are due to the COVID-19 situation.
All right, so you're the co-chair of the County Commissioners of PA Elections Reform Committee. What are some of those conversations about? Away from COVID-19 and these latest changes, what are you folks talking about?
Well, modernizing the election code is a big topic of conversation, and that's one thing that Act 77 did. Talked about, let's get into the 21st century of election code. Election technology, the machines, the way we do the canvassing of the ballots. One other thing that's going to happen going forward is that whenever you have mail-in or absentee ballots, it used to be that you had to wait until 8 p.m. of election night before you could actually tally those. Now we have what we call a central scanner that we will run all those things through, and we're actually going to be permitted to do pre-canvassing, which means that we can start doing that, and it will take a long time, but we can start doing that before 8 p.m. on Election Day. So there are a number of things that we talk about. That how do you make voting accessible to as many people as possible, because it is a precious right, but also keep the integrity of the system. And every county, Pennsylvania has such a wide variety of situations, and to have one election code for the entire state is a challenge, given our rural and very urban nature of a lot of the counties.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so bottom line is June the 2nd is the new primary date here for Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, nothing has changed in Indiana County as far as your polling station, but I encourage people to stay tuned. And if they're interested in mail-in ballots, get online to votespa.com, or feel free to call our terrific voter services department at 465-3852, and they are ready to help. And we just want this to go as smoothly as possible for everybody this year and every year.
Very good. Sherene, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk with you.
And you. There you go.
All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye.